It's another beautiful day. I'm gonna head to the beach, get some movement in on the sand, ground myself. But what I really wanted to talk about today was what to do when you spot red flags in someone, and what not to do. What to do and what not to do, because it's one thing to spot them, which is a whole different story. But when you do spot a red flag, I've just witnessed and experienced things not to do that make the situation worse. And specifically what we need to personally do to navigate that space. And when I'm talking about toxic relationships pretty much always involve people with BPD, borderline personality disorder. And with BPD, a lot of things are involved in that. You can have a variety of different personality disorders like narcissism. I'd even argue codependency falls under that. Bipolar, sociopathy, psychopathy, and those are the more extremes. Narcissism is already almost there. But what I learned, and I'm saying this from my own experience. I have a lot of experience navigating narcissistic relationships, and the last relationship I was in was probably the biggest lesson that I've ever had. And it had a lot to do with BPD. Someone that was hiding it, but their actions and their words just weren't aligning, and their behavior was clearly exhibiting some kind of misalignment with their personality and the words they say, and boundaries being violated. So what I learned, and I'm gonna tell you how I came upon this epiphany last night. I was watching MILF Manor, and I thought it was funny. I started watching because I thought it was funny. It's a bunch of MILFs, and it's like this quote-unquote reality dating show, which is not reality at all. But you can look it up yourself, MILF Manor. I'm not going to go into what show that is. But there's a part in one of the seasons or one of the episodes where two narcissists, codependent / narcissistic people, gang up and join sides to validate their beliefs and their reality, and gaslight another person who is calling them out about their misalignment of words and actions. And gosh, I had like a flashback as I was watching it. And as I'm watching this show, I'm watching and observing the whole dynamic of narcissism, codependency play out. Who's joining forces with who's friends with who, and it's like, it's so obvious. It's almost like, okay, yeah, that's the narcissist, there's the codependent, and it's a spectrum, right? Most people who have codependency, they also develop some level of narcissism because they're in relationships with narcissists. So to survive relationships with narcissists, you have to develop narcissistic traits. And that's a whole different topic that can get really deep. And if you want to go deep in that, I highly suggest you research Richard Grannon. Richard Grannon will go deep as far as these BPD relationships, these toxic relationships, and how they operate and how it works. And he has a perspective that I've not really seen many people take, because he goes so deep into how they operate, how they work, how their brain functions. But there's also Dr. Ramani, who is awesome. There's quite a bit of behavioral, I guess, gurus or therapists or psychologists that specialize in personality disorders and toxic relationships. But getting back to the story, there was that scene where they're validating each other, the narcissist and They're basically two narcissists, but one is a covert narcissist. And this is something that has also kind of pulled me away from the church. It hasn't pulled me away from God. It hasn't pulled me away from my own daily devotions, my own spiritual practice, and my own prayers for these people. But one thing that has pulled me away from the Christian church is a high degree of narcissism, codependency that is just, and it's not talked about either. That's what's frustrating. It's the living word, the Bible. It can be used to justify narcissism. It can be used to justify narcissistic abuse. It can be used to justify codependency. And all of these, the narcissistic tendencies, the codependent tendencies, they are rooted in a lack of boundaries. They're rooted in a lack of boundaries, and they're both manipulative. They're manipulative in different ways. However, the narcissist is someone that has, I want to say, an unhealthy ego, like too much of an ego. And then the codependent almost has like no ego at all, like no idea or boundary of what the self is. But both are parasitic, both are unconscious of what it means to live with boundaries, and both feed off of some kind of validation. And this comes from a deep wound. So I mean, I pray for all of these people that I've had to be in relationship with. And let me tell you, I'm not saying that I don't have a degree of narcissistic tendencies or codependency tendencies. I'm a recovering person with narcissistic tendencies and codependent tendencies. However, I want to say I don't think that there is a single person in this world, in society today, that doesn't have some degree of either narcissistic or codependent tendencies. I am noticing that these tendencies are, at least where I live, in my community in Hawaii, it's pretty high. I have not come across one person with a healthy relationship. I've come across people who have been together for a very long time, and as I just observe and my own journey and my own studying and going super deep into narcissistic abuse, codependency, I see it in all of these. Like, they're very dysfunctional, which makes it really difficult to date in this era, I feel like, because for one, not many people are aware of what boundaries are. There are so many people who don't understand what boundaries are. So let me go back, let me rewind. When you recognize that someone has a misalignment of their words and their actions, where they're lying or they're dishonest, whenever you see that, it is a sign of some kind of dysfunction in relationship, not just with people around them, but relationship to their self. I've noticed that people who lie to other people, or people who don't live up to their word, people whose actions don't line up with their words, there is boundary violations everywhere. So when you spot a red flag of someone whose words don't align with their actions, the best thing to do is to not call them out on it. The chances are of someone who lives this way, someone who is in this phase of spiritual development, who is in this phase of growth in on a soul level, they cannot hear the truth. They cannot register the truth. So anytime you call them out on it, it just perpetuates more drama. It perpetuates more gaslighting, more spinning of the story, and arguing with someone with cognitive dissonance. It brings you out of alignment with your own self. It brings you out of alignment with your own highest resonance. It's a waste of chi, it's a waste of energy, it's a waste of time. You're not gonna get through to them.
You're not gonna get through to them.
The only way these people will snap out of it is by God's grace on their own terms. And it's usually not because someone called them out on it. It's usually because they're in a place where they're already broken down by the situations of life to the point they are begging God for mercy. I find it's in these moments where people are literally willing to see the truth, but it usually happens not when you're calling them out on it. It usually happens on their own accord when they're by themselves, or when they finally get an epiphany and they start reflecting on their own life. And this is just from my own observation. I'm not saying that you have to practice what I am suggesting. I'm just saying that this is totally up to you, and you can try this yourself. You can go and call people out on their shit. But for me, I find that it escalates the drama. It escalates the situation. Me personally, what I've been doing lately is I will almost just kind of like question one time, not a lot. I won't go over and over and over, because I've done that in the past with relationships. Like, I thought you said this, but this is what's happening, you know? Oh, I thought you said that. And then, you know, when you start doing it over and over and over, and you're putting it in their face, they become more defensive, and they start, at least from my own experience, people who with high degree of narcissistic traits, they're in great denial. And again, it's by God's grace that God allowed me to break out of mine and accept hard truths and swallow truths and start looking at aspects of me. You know, to accept that I had some degree of narcissistic traits and behavior as a way to adapt to a very dysfunctional and narcissistic home growing up as a child, it was a hard pill to swallow. But it was the greatest thing that I've ever done lately. It's one of the hardest lessons, and it's a very disturbing lesson, but it's one of the most transformative lessons. So what I do now, because I've come across more people, I see it in the workplace. I've not been in one workplace without a high degree of narcissism in management, with a high degree of codependency in the employees, you know, family, friends, workplace. I've not seen, it's really sad. It's actually really sad. The only people that I've been able to kind of follow as far as guides would be the people that have been educating me about relational awareness. People like Brene Brown, people like Richard Grannon, people like Dr. Ramani. It's like these people are the only example. Mark Groves is another one, an awesome human connection specialist who I've done quite a bit of courses with, Mark Groves. But if it wasn't for these people, I would have no clue as far as relational awareness, as far as what boundaries are, as far as what living with healthy boundaries looks like. by them telling their stories and their examples of how they approach certain situations, how they approach violations of their boundaries. So for me, what I noticed is when I spot a red flag, a narcissistic or a BPD red flag, a bipolar red flag, some kind of cognitive dissonance, some kind of words not aligning with their actions red flag, lying, dishonesty, I make a self note. I make a note to self. I don't call them out on it, but I will say at least 1 or 2 times, like, oh, I thought, and very innocently, I'm not like calling them out on it, I'm not like saying they're a liar or, you know, you're whatever. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to make sense of what they said. Very innocently, I'm just like, oh, I thought, didn't you say that so-and-so did this or this? And then they'll spin the story. You know, they'll just tell another lie. What I learned is I'll do it maybe twice. If they do it, what is this guy doing? If they spin the story twice and I catch them in 2 lies already, I'm already drawing a boundary for myself. And this is for myself. I don't go create a lot of drama. I make a note to self. I recalibrate my own internal compass and mark this person as someone that is in a phase of their spiritual growth, a phase of their soul development that is not ready to support where I'm going, that is not ready to support me in any way. And if they do support me in some kind of way, that's great. It's a bonus. Like, you know, by some kind of action, I'm grateful and I'm thankful, and I continue to just like give gratitude. But other than that, I pray for this person. I pray for this person. And there's a lot of people I've been praying for. A lot of people I've been praying for. And the best thing I can do is just live with boundaries and live by that example as best as my ability. So creating boundaries, I'll go over how I create boundaries these days, because I've been creating a lot and it's been creating a very beautiful life for me. If you've been enjoying this video so far and you've been taking a lot of value from what I've been sharing, please support me by hitting the like and subscribe button. If not, it's all good. I am cutting this video here because it's going to be too long. So I'm setting up a part 2 video for this, which is called Learning the Art of Setting Boundaries. Thanks for watching.